the first to know Nsem-Pii TV.
And then Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, I idea was shaking on our parliament and saying, Abraham, NDC taking power for about 6-7 months in here. The dollar has gotten some strength. There's an appreciation. Now saying after say IMF issued the 370 million US dollars as part of the package, more warning say the Bank of Ghana is intervening in the cedi appreciation artificially and to more reduces our intervention. Now, Akamaka say NDC were claiming is financial disciplining. Is that? Meanwhile, Bank of Ghana saying about say Omo inject 1.4 billion into the financial market. I know how much they no appreciate. Meanwhile, in economics term, and sustainable. Nea wɔn kura sɛ saa 1.4 billion na wɔn inject yɛ no, ɛnyɛ NDC sika o, ɛnyɛ NDC na bɛ accrue that profit from gold board. Contrary to claims wɔn making initially sɛ gold board no, ɛna ama si de appreciate ɛne that ne nyinaa ɛyɛ ntorɔ. Gold reserve a ɛyɛ Bank of Ghana ɛwɔ, which was accrued by the NPP government before handing over to NDC no. Saa sika naa na wɔn sesa na wɔn asan ato agu market no. Nti saa 1.4 billion no koraa nyɛ gold board na raise dabi. Wɔn sesa saa sika naa na wɔn asan ayɛ den ato agu market no ɛna ama cedi no appreciate, which is not sustainable. Say IMF say wɔn reduce intervention, meaning sɛ so wɔn yi wɔn nsa every saa massive injection so there's going to be a decline in the cedi. Abusuafo Kojo Oppong Nkrumah akasa papa. Say mmɔ NPP aba so sɛ otumi accumulate that reserve a wɔn de yɛ injection which is artificial. Na yɛnkɔ tie no.
Even the opportunity, and I want to commend the chairman of the Committee on the Economy for the statement he has made, which has introduced back onto the floor of this House a number of subjects for us to consider. In the commentary that has come, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, there's been some distortion that I think, even as we all elucidate, we should try to correct. First is the subject of the exchange rate. Yes, there's been an appreciation of the Ghanaian cedi, and nobody can say he's unhappy about that. But what is the cause? Among other things, quite recently, the IMF has quite clearly explained part of what is happening. That the government has dumped about $1.4 billion from our dollar reserves onto the market. If a country has $1.4 billion of dollar reserves to dump onto the market to help its currency appreciate, two questions must be asked. The first, where did those reserves come from? And the second, how sustainable is it? Mr. Speaker, it is a matter of fact that in the 6 months of this administration, it has not generated $1.4 billion in terms of new additions to our gross international reserves. The truth is that at the point of inheriting power, the previous administration had left over $8 billion of international reserves, part of which the new administration is drawn and dumped onto the market. And so, as we discuss the performance of the economy, credit should be given where credit is due. The second part of that argument, Mr. Speaker, is how sustainable is it? How sustainable is it to continuously be dumping $1.4 billion onto the Ghanaian market in a 6-month period? Do we have that kind of reserves? And it therefore calls for some more honest and prudent economic planning beyond an attempt to take fiscal plaudits. Mr. Speaker, the next matter I want to speak to is the subject of fiscal discipline. Sometimes you hear it being bandied about fiscal discipline. Fiscal discipline does not mean a failure to meet your fiscal targets. If you program to raise, for example, $1 billion and spend 800 million and leave a balance of 200 million, you don't fail to raise your billion and just maybe raise about 300 million spend 100 and say that fiscal discipline, you've still achieved 200 million. No, that's not it. Because there are a lot of public goods and services you have programmed to do with that 800 million. Today, Mr. Speaker, we were here in this chamber when the Minister for Finance represented to us that so much money had been sent to the district assemblies and that the district assemblies common fund, about 80% allocation is going to the assemblies. All of us here in the chamber know that none of your districts has received that money. None of your districts has received that money. None of your districts has received that money. So if you have not mobilized and spent that money, and you keep touting fiscal discipline, it will come back to haunt you. Mr. Speaker, currently, the government has launched the 1 million coders program, Agric for Economic Transformation, known as Feed Ghana, National Apprenticeship Program, and a number of other programs. They even announced recently that they have signed a contract to send over 2,000 Ghanaians to work abroad. We all know that no money has been released for these programs, and so there are no real beneficiaries on the ground. So this argument of fiscal discipline that you want to tout as rhetoric, Mr. Speaker, we encourage our colleagues, is not backed by the numbers. Your numbers have not exactly performed, so you haven't spent. It is now that monies are being mobilized to be released to the ministries, departments, and agencies. And so that cannot be defined as fiscal discipline. The failure to perform on the fiscal program is not fiscal discipline. Mr. Speaker, finally, conversations border around relief in the economy. Yes, it is true that as the city has appreciated, it has translated into a lower cost of various items that are imported. But we've already discussed the sustainability and the why. But even at the same time, you have increased electricity tariffs by 14% earlier, and then another 2.5%, and you are advertising to increase electricity tariffs some more. That is not relief to the Ghanaian consumer. You have increased water tariffs. That is not relief to the Ghanaian consumer. You are beginning to advertise that cocoa prices, and the majority of farmers who are cocoa farmers who benefit from cocoa, and we're hoping they will get some more based on the promises you have made. You are beginning to advertise that you may not be in a position to increase cocoa prices and give them more relief. And so, Mr. Speaker, yes, there have been developments on the Ghanaian economy. We expect that the Minister for Finance will appear shortly to provide some more details. But the reasons that are being given should be reasons that align more with the facts and less with the propaganda. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement ably made by the Chair of the Economy and Development Committee. The Speaker, I'll not repeat the fact that has been stated by many, that indeed it was a thorough statement, well researched, with facts. The Speaker, I agree with my colleague, Honourable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, who says we should educate ourselves on the issues that have come up in contributions. Mr. Speaker, and part of the education I want to note is that sometimes discipline can look like what he claims, non-performance. Discipline can look like non-performance. Because you see, it takes discipline to deny oneself of the ability to do. So if you are not disciplined and you are not able to control your expenditure, then you run the risk of living deficits like those that we have inherited. And Mr. Speaker, my friend spoke about injections in the economy by the Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the facts are that the IMF have indicated clearly that in the last quarter of 2024 alone, the last quarter of 2024, when his government, their government was in power, the Bank of Ghana intervened with about $2 billion. $2 billion. Mr. Speaker, despite that $2 billion intervention, the cedi was exchanging at about 16 cedis to $1. Mr. Speaker, That means that you cannot attribute the current good performance of the cedi to just a $1.4 billion intervention. If that were the case, the cedi would have been doing better when we had about $2 billion intervention in the last quarter of 2024. Mr. Speaker, he asks of where the intervention or the reserve is coming from. Mr. Speaker, it's coming from a reformed gold sector, and that is policy. That is backed by good governance, where we now have the gold board ensuring that in about just 4 months, the country is able to raise $2.7 billion US. That is where an intervention can come from. But yet again, I want to repeat that that intervention alone is not enough to bring the cedi to 10 as it's currently trading to the dollar. If that were the case, it would have been better in 2024 when in the last quarter we intervened, the Bank of Ghana intervened by over $2 billion US. Mr. Speaker, the economy is something that we all live. It's simple, it's basic. Only last week, Mr. Speaker, I was in my constituency. One branch chairman of mine came to a base where we were seated. He parked his motorbike and decided not to switch the engine off. When one of us called him and said, "Chief, please, turn off your engine," he said, "Oh, Abba Papa is Abba, so fuel has reduced, and so I don't care." Mr. Speaker, to wit that a good government was in place and fuel prices have gone down, and so he doesn't mind how much he burns, on how much he pays on fuel, for fuel now, because it has reduced. Mr. Speaker, so when we speak of inflation, at the risk of contradicting my colleagues who spoke earlier, it may be the case that indeed inflation coming down does not necessarily mean prices coming down. But in our circumstance today, the trending down of inflation, coupled with the improved exchange rate, has obviously led to reduction in prices of commodities on the market. Only a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated Eid in this country. Mr. Speaker, before the current economic transformation that we are experiencing, we had Eid al-Fitr in the early part of this year. Mr. Speaker, as we all do, supporting our constituents, after Ramadan, during Eid al-Fitr, I bought a bag of rice for 620 Ghana cedis in Tamale.